How's it going, everybody? The Silent Joker's back, and this time it is build number 3 and Knuckles, and we will be doing, let's do 7 builds, just like I did last time. Now, I don't believe the last video hit the like goal until significantly after the video's release, so we're going to try one more time here. If this video gets 250 likes within the first 3 days of the video's release, I will make a 4th installment of the series and continue the series. Now, unfortunately, this video series only has so much it can go on to because, hey, let's face it, most of the builds you guys are suggesting sometimes have very similar mistakes or similar issues with them. So eventually we will get past all the main things and it will be more of like the nuanced builds that have very specific issues with them, which will make it very hard to actually keep the build's original identity in order. Without further ado though, let's get right into the list, and oh my goodness, there are 51 of you guys. So there may be more, but there are 51 of you individuals that have suggested builds that I was able to grab. Now, again, I didn't grab everyone. I've been extremely busy, so I haven't been able to respond to everyone's comments, things of that nature, so please forgive me if your build's not in this video. But we're going to get started right away by going into the first build. And honestly, I have no idea how this build is going to go. I'm very interested to see what this build is. And we are getting a build from Blepomorph 419. So, Blepo, you're going to be the first starting off this video. Let's go right into your build and see what you provided with us. Now, before getting into Blepo's build, I would just like to state that I'm going to try to go through these builds a little bit quicker because I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 videos going through a lot of builds very in depth. So I'm going to try to cover these a little bit faster. So, going to Blepo's build, Blepo has Boost Character Kit, Quick Charge 2, Ring Engine, 130 limit. This is actually a really solid build on trick maps. So there actually isn't a lot for me to cover. Like, genuinely, Blepo actually made a very solid cohesive build. This is a build that is very consistent on trick maps. So you're looking at Aqua Forest, Metal Harbor, Radical kinda. You can make it work. Eggman Expo kinda, maybe Donpa kinda. You can definitely find some success with this build on some tracks. The biggest gripe with this build, especially if you're trying to keep the identity of the build intact, is the fact that your ring generation is actually very minimal, very conditional on tricks. If you cannot get consistent tricks off, your build just kind of fumbles and it falls apart, and you're forced to go for tons and tons of ring lines, which is really bad for a ring engine based build, because ring engine and hyper ring engine are very core to taking super consistent lines that are super optimal and super optimized, where with this build you're kind of forced to go out of your way on tracks such as East Stadium to take longer jumps that can slow you down tremendously, going and taking weird lines that force you into jumps, things of that nature. But if you get stuff like Aqua Forest, Holoska, Kraken Bay, things like that, this build actually can work very well and you can get a ton of tricks off very consistently. But remember, the biggest issue is your ring generation is not only conditional, but it's very minimal. This is a big issue with Boost Character Kit on its own because Air Trick Bounty can't really be slotted into this combo that you have here. If you wanted Air Trick Bounty on this combo, you would actually have to substitute out either Quick Charge 2, which is bad, Ring Engine, which is also bad, and 130 limit, which is really bad. So I think your biggest issue is that this is just a little too conditional. It's too based on Ring Engine 130 getting into that range, because if you get hit once, especially on a map that's not a trick map, you are going to be basically always at minus speed on everybody. I think the only way you could change this build to make it a little more consistent, where it's not fully about trying to keep your rings at 100 or above 100 at all times, where you're actually able to get more value off your tricks, it's probably ring gain boost. You can get some ring gain boost value off a Boost Character Kit by getting a ton of tricks, getting a ton of rings, things of that nature. But otherwise, if you're running the 130 ring engine variant like this, make sure you are on Aqua Forest or you're on getting Holoska, Kraken Bay, things of that nature. Otherwise, you will definitely struggle quite a lot. Let's move on to build number 2. Build number 2 is going to be from Chad. Chad is actually making a build that I think is actually really interesting. So this is Slipstream, Extended Slipstream, Ring Gain Mini Boost, and Excel Character Kit. So this build is actually not terrible when it comes to power vehicles, and I believe he stated that he is using a handling car. So here's your issue with this. Handling cars have surprisingly low boost. They actually have the most average boost stat in the game. Here's what I recommend to you. Your build is very key on Ring Game Boost, Slipstream Bounty, and getting a lot of value off it. You can run 2 different styles with this. You can substitute out Ring Game Mini Boost, which is completely unnecessary because Ring Game Mini Boost only gives you about +7 speed for about 0.6 to 0.8 seconds. I don't know, somewhere in that range. So it gives you +7 speed on top of the fact that it decays extremely quickly. Whereas Quick Charge 2, when you get a level 2 drift boost or you get a level 3 drift boost, you get +25 speed for 2.5 seconds and 3.5 seconds respectively, based on if it's a level 2 or level 3. That is what makes this so much better because you have more consistent speed that lasts longer and it works better with Excel Character Kit. On top of that, Slipstream Bounty and doubling the Slipstream Bounty is not terrible. If you want to keep this idea, that's fine. Let's try to work around this. The big thing is Extended Slipstream's kind of unnecessary. When you start getting better at the game and you start versing better players, a lot of players tend to hold their items much more consistently and hold their items for only very specific situations where they're about to get hit, things of that nature. So Extended Slipstream kind of doesn't have a lot of value. You can actually substitute out Extended Slipstream for a different gadget if you really wanted to. I think there really isn't a lot of good gadgets to substitute this out for, especially since you're using a handling machine. Your best bet maybe is like Quick Charge 3. You could potentially do something else, but again, very hard to determine what to swap this out with. But I recommend this is better for a power vehicle setup, or a handling vehicle setup works just fine with this. But I think just drop Ring Game Mini Boost. It doesn't provide a lot of value. It's very minimal value. Level 2 Quick Charge is not only just better in general, but it's also more consistent in general, which Ring Game Mini Boost doesn't have that consistency or that power that Quick Charge level 2 actually provides you. Especially because, again, drift charges are super important, and getting a lot of level 3s, if you can, is so important, especially if you can stay in Slipstream for long periods of time. You can get so many level 3s that you can permanently stay at the speed cap, which is incredible, which you actually cannot do with mini Ring Game Boost very consistently. It takes a lot of extra steps, whereas this doesn't even have to worry about that. Not only that, remember, Extended Slipstream only extends the horizontal range that you can Slipstream off of someone, not the vertical, to my knowledge, and on top of that, it only gives you an extra 0.05 seconds of Slipstream after you exit it. So if you're exiting and entering a ton, you can get a lot of value, but if you're not going to have that situation occur often, you're not going to be behind people from like super far to the left or right, I think Extended Slipstream could be just dropped for a Quick Charge 3, or you can find a different gadget. Like if you want to run like Item Hit Evolution or Collision Evolution, you absolutely can if you want to have some more fun, but otherwise you can, I think Quick Charge 3 is your best other option if you don't want to run Extended Slipstream. Let's move into selecting build number 3. We've covered Chad's build. Let's go into build number 3 of the video, and this one I'm very excited for, because I'm very interested to see what this is going to be. We've had some pretty interesting builds, it feels like, so far. And build number 3 is going to be coming from Arnon, I believe. Yes, it is. Let's get into Arnon's build and let's see what Arnon has to offer. Build number 3 is Arnon's build, and Arnon actually has a very interesting build that I'm very interested to talk about, which is a Crash Pads build. You don't see a lot of Crash Pads, and for good reason. Crash Pads lets you take half damage from everything. That means Ring Thief, that means bumps, that means stage hazards, things of that nature, everything. What makes this build really good is that this is already the main solo Ring Engine meta build, one of them I should say, that goes based off this. This is the normal solo Ring Engine build, and it's not terrible by any means. It's actually a really good build. The only issue is that Hyper Ring Engine just has significantly more speed on you. The Hyper Ring Engine gets up to about plus 21 to plus 22 flat speed, whereas Solo Ring Engine builds can only get to about plus 18 because of the plus 12 speed stat that it provides. So you're always going to be around plus 3 to 4 speed slower than Hyper Ring Engine based builds. So do keep that in mind. That means you're going to be reliant on Slipstream, which is really bad. The good thing is that with Crash Pads and 130, you do have the added benefit of being able to stay at a higher amount of rings much longer, which allows you to keep that plus 7 ring speed that you're supposed to be getting from your 100th ring for extended periods of time. So if you get hit once with Crash Pads, you only lose 25 rings, which gives you 5 rings of buffer, about 5 seconds to get your rings back up, so that way you don't fall out of that 100th ring where it makes you lose 7 speed. It is very, very good for that reason. The only bad part is, again, with Crash Pads on this, you're basically just a worse version of the Hyper Ring Engine build. Your only other option is running Quick Charge 3. That is literally your only other option for this build if you want to make it work. I think, honestly, there isn't a lot to talk about, and there isn't a lot to really improve upon this build outside of just saying, hey, go run Quick Charge 3, or just run the Hyper Ring Engine version of the build. But honestly, this is a very fun looking build. I think in the right circumstances, you can definitely make this work in certain lobbies, but when you start getting to the higher level lobbies, and especially the top level lobbies, this build's going to fall off tremendously. But if you're not at that point yet where you're versing like the top, like I would say 150, 200 players, then this build can work very consistently, very easily. And especially if you get to the top like 200 to 100 range, I would say, where once you get to that area, you can actually still run a solo Ring Engine build. I believe there are players like Mute that run solo Ring Engine builds, and they still find massive success in top level lobbies just due to having really good lines, really good item play, and just in general good knowledge. So you can definitely make this work, but I think you're gonna have to pivot more into using Quick Charge 3 or even Tech Drift, and you're gonna have to drop that Crash Pads, unfortunately, which really sucks to say. Let's move on to picking build number 4. Going into build number 4. So build number 4 could be anything, honestly, at this point, especially with the fact that there's still 48 people here on this wheel. Could be a lot of people. And we are going to be getting a build from, it looks like, Superlostbrain 2008. Let's see what Superlostbrain's build is going to be for this. Build number 4 is going to be from Superlostbrain. Superlostbrain's build is a Ring Engine 130 build, but instead we have Slipstream Bounty, we have Ring Game Boost, and we have Ring Thief Mini. So here's the big thing with this build, and this is where I have one thing to say, especially since you're using a power car. This build is terrible for power cars for one reason. The reason is your ring generation is beyond terrible. So I'm not trying to say that to be rude, but your ring generation is pretty terrible, genuinely. Ring Thief Mini only gives you 2 rings every, I think it's like 0.13 seconds after bumping someone. There actually is a cooldown to this, so your rings per second is tremendously reduced because of it. If there wasn't a long cooldown to this, your rings per second could be insane, but the devs wanted to put a cooldown to this. So you might be wondering, how would I fix this build? So honestly, if you've watched my last video, you might know that Slipstream Bounty on top of Ring Engine, it takes 80 seconds, like I mean this seriously, 80 full seconds to get from the starting 20 rings without getting hit, without hitting walls, without losing rings, and staying in Slipstream for 80 full seconds, and then you can get to 100 plus rings. That takes a long time. It is abysmal. But there's this funny little gadget called Excel Character Kit. And if you know anything about gadget stacking, Excel Character Kit has Slipstream Bounty and Ring Game Boost 2 slot. Why does this matter? Well, Slipstream Bounty and Excel Character Kit's version of Slipstream Bounty stack. So instead of getting only 2 rings a second and making you wait 80 seconds to get into that 100 ring limit, double Slipstream Bounty here gives you 4 rings a second, which means you're getting 3 rings every second versus only 1. That means you're reducing the time of collecting rings significantly, especially with Slipstream. So let's put this in perspective. Let's say I need 80 rings, right? For 27 seconds of Slipstream, you can have over 100 rings while maintaining Ring Engine and staying in Slipstream for significantly less periods of time and being required to be in Slipstream for less periods of time. 27 seconds is surprisingly long, but keep in mind, at the very start of the race, everyone's going to be packed together very tightly, and it's going to be hard to break the packs. So this allows you to actually utilize the double Slipstream Bounty to a very high degree, get a lot of rings very quickly, and go for a couple ring lines if necessary to avoid getting hit. So that way you can get a ton of rings, get into that 100 ring limit area, so you can start working towards that 130 limit and get the max value of Ring Engine on top of still getting value of Ring Game Boost. Now, again, just like everyone else's builds when they run, say, Slipstream Bounty or they run without 130 limit, here's this funny little thing called reliancy on Slipstream. You basically are using Slipstream as your crutch to where you have to use it to basically get all your speed, get all your consistency, things of that nature. That is really bad because if people recognize that you're forcing yourself into permanently slipstreaming and you have to stay permanently slipstreaming with someone, unless you're slipstream buddying with the person in first/second/third in that top 3 to 4 range, you're basically screwed. And you don't have any drift generation. Plus 12 boost is nice, but without drift generation, you can't get your drift charges off very consistently, which means if you have to ever snake to keep up with people, you're going to be in a very, very terrible spot, which could really hinder you. So keep in mind, you will have to charge your drifts on bends, and you have to get your drifts off on bends very consistently, and if you miss level 3s, you're going to be having a lot of downtime, which could be very, very bad for you. So I think, honestly, this is the best way to buff your build and fix it. Drop Ring Thief Mini, it is terrible, and add Excel Character Kit, and then put Slipstream Bounty on the top like this. This will make your build not only more consistent, but give you a lot more rings to work with, and have, in general, much more potential with your power card build, and this keeps your identity of the build intact. Unfortunately, I can't fit drift generation in here unless you want to lose a lot of this ring generation. That's going to be very beneficial to you, but as long as you can deal with the lower drift generation, this should help you a lot. This should be very beneficial. Let's move on to picking build number 5. Build number 5, going right into it. I'm not even going to waste any time because I'm very interested to see what the next build already is. We've already covered 4 builds. Let's go into build number 5, and it's going to be coming from PhoenixMidnight. This is someone that I've known for quite a while here, so I'm very excited to talk about his build and see what he has to offer here. Cannot wait to talk about this. Build number 5 is going to be from PhoenixMidnight, which is someone that I've talked to for a very long period of time. Phoenix's build is a very interesting one. This build requires Quick Charge 2, Ring Evolution, and double rings. So here's the problem with this build immediately off put. This build is super fun. You can definitely make it work in World Match. It definitely has the potential in World Match. There's no speed generation. You have stats, but it still takes 300 rings even with the ring doubler. The cool thing about this build is that it forces you into the situation where Ring Evolution only requires half the rings. So think of it as basically you need 5 rings to get a +1 stat, right? So that means you only need 300 rings to get +60 stats, which is really good. On average, you're getting about 280 to 300 rings, which is actually very plausible to do with this build. The issue is that you're forced into taking tons of ring lines, which is very slow, and you're forced to stay in Slipstream for a very, very long periods of time. So if you ever fall out of Slipstream and you ever have this issue where you're constantly getting hit and you can't get a ton of rings very consistently, and you become basically super reliant on your items and getting good items, which is very bad and very slow in general, which is not something you want to really be reliant on. So unfortunately, I can't really buff this build. The reason why I say this is because if I were to try to take this build and actually buff it or try to fix it, I actually legitimately can't, because this build of core identity of using Ring Doubler and Ring Evolution to get to max stats as quick as possible with using Ring Evolution having this super fun build basically gets thrown out the water, and I don't keep the identity no more. And this build basically goes from being this very fun, I get more ROI off every ring, right? So there's just not a good way to go about this with fixing it. I think in general the build is very fun, but in terms of viability at the higher levels of play and in general trying to get consistent wins, unfortunately, unless it's in World Match or in friend lobbies where people aren't taking the game super seriously or there's a lot of chaos being ensued, I really don't see the consistency with this build, unfortunately. But I will say I have used this build myself. It is extremely fun, and I think it's extremely funny. So don't take it personally that your build doesn't have that consistency that other builds do, but one thing it has on a lot of the other builds is it's very, very fun. But I am very sad to say I can't fix this build. The only real way to fix this build while using an evolution gadget is by completely removing Ring Doubler, putting like item hit, and just completely reworking the bottom bar, which I don't want to really do because that takes away from what this series has been, which is trying to improve your builds and keeping the build identity intact. Let's move on to picking build number 6. Going into build number 6, again, right away, trying to just get through these as fast as I can. Only got one more build after I talk about this one, and this one's going to be coming from Mauro Perez 2848. Hopefully I said your name correctly. If I didn't, please forgive me. But let's get right into Mauro Perez's build. Build number 6 is coming from Mauro Perez. Hopefully, again, I said your name correctly. He suggested Slipstream Bounty, Ring Game Boost, Dash Panel Mini Bounty, and Item Sub. So this build is basically an alternative version of the one I run with Quick Charge 2. Here's the problem with running Dash Panel Mini versus running Quick Charge 2. So keep in mind, Ring Game Boost as a gadget will give you plus 15 for about 1.2 seconds, and it decays. Here's the problem. Dash Panels will only give you that bonus if there's a ton of them in a chain, where it's like, you know how with ring lines you can consistently stay in that plus 15, whereas with Dash Panels you actually will gain that plus 15, but it will decay before the next Dash Panel on average. Because of this, you actually not only lose a lot of uptime on your higher speeds, but you also don't really get a lot of ring generation, because Dash Panel Mini is only 2 per Dash Panel, which means you have to go over 50 Dash Panels to get those rings. On the other hand of the spectrum, let's look at Quick Charge 2. Quick Charge 2 will give you a faster drift charge, which is really beneficial, on top of the fact that Quick Charge 2 also allows you to get a level 2 boost that lasts 2.5 seconds and gives you plus 25 speed the whole duration without decaying until the very end. And on top of that, if you charge this and hold this all the way to a level 3, you get plus 25 speed for 3.5 seconds. You see kind of the consistency difference there? Ring Game Boost is very consistent on its own, but it does require more ring generation, but you really need drifts involved with this. So you basically become this slipstream bot where you stay behind people, constantly charging level 3s and sticking behind them, and then holding items for as long as necessary to use item substitution on them and getting rid of those bad items in your inventory and staying with the top pack, which is very, very important. But when you fall out of slipstream and you can't really get value off item substitution basically becomes a dead slot, and you're basically kind of a fish out of water. So there is that. So I think your best option is running Quick Charge 2 and keeping item substitution in here. I think it's your best option in general to keep the build while keeping the core identity of the build intact. Also, just to answer your question real quick, Excel Character Kit and Hyper Ring Engine, I'm just going to cover this real fast. I'm going to be real. There's no good way to make this work. Like, you can run the 130 variant of this and run it like this, or you can run the double slipstream variant like this, but both versions are not only extremely reliant on slipstream, you have 0 drift generation, which is in every build currently, which is integral to the game. On top of that, you are basically always going to be in the situation where you never get that 100th ring for consistently long periods of time. What does that mean? You basically always have -7 speed on everyone else, especially if they're running the main meta build of Hyper Ring Engine 130, Perfect Charge Bounty, and Quick Charge 2. So you're always down 7 speed, and Ring Game Boost, yeah, it might help you for a short period of time, but what happens if you fall out of slipstream? Now you don't have that +7 consistently, on top of the fact you don't even get that Ring Game Boost speed consistently. So you basically, again, just like with your build with running substitute item and whatnot, you're kind of a fish out of water without slipstream. And it doesn't matter if you run this variant where you get 3 rings a second, or you get this variant with 1 ring a second. They're both just in general really bad, unfortunately, and they're both very, very inconsistent, and they're both super reliant on staying in permanent slipstream no matter what you do, and that is just something you really don't want to be relying on, especially at the higher levels of play. If you want to run this in lower level lobbies where people aren't going to really be making massive breakaways, you can definitely get away with it, but in general, I don't recommend this build any more than like past maybe like gold plat lobbies in Legend Comp, or like maybe like decent lobbies in World Match. That's what I recommend. Let's move on to picking the last build of the video. Last but not least, the final build of this video, and it's going to be from one of you lucky 45 left on this wheel. Let's figure it out. And it looks like it's going to be coming from Flufftron. So let's see what Flufftron's build is, and let's finish off this video strong. The last build of the video is Flufftron. Flufftron is running a Perfect Charge Bounty, Quick Charge 2, Perfect Charge Boost, and Ring Engine. So Flufftron, I'm going to say this right now, really cool idea with running the double Perfect Charges. I respect that. Drop Ring Engine. This gadget is terrible for your build. It is basically kneecapping you entirely. Plus 12 stats is a very kind of misconception thing where people think plus 12 to all your stats is amazing and it's super good. If you've ever heard about why tuners are bad gadgets or understand why tuners are bad gadgets, solo Ring Engine without 130 is basically a tuner in a sense that requires you to constantly provide rings to it. And what that means is that you're only getting plus 7 ring speed at most, on top of the fact that you're getting the plus 3 flat speed from having Ring Engine activated, and then plus 12 to your stats, which again, I stated this earlier, plus 12 to your stats is only 0.6 speed being given to you. So you're getting about plus 11 speed roughly in that range, give or take, depending on the build. Depending on the build, it's only maybe plus 10. Basically, you're in this situation where you're always down speed of players that don't run this. So like if I were to take this off and just run a Quick Charge 3, I will always have plus 4 speed on you, on top of having my drifts charge significantly faster than you. And that is a very, very dangerous thing to be in, because if I'm in this situation where I have faster quick charges than you, I can drift stack more easily, I get more Perfect Charge Bounty and boost procs, and in general, I'm able to take a lot of snaking based lines that you unfortunately have to spend extra time charging your level 3s that I can get off much more consistently and much easier and stay in my level 3 drift state so much longer than you can, and that is something you don't want to have. So I recommend drop Ring Engine. Genuinely, drop Ring Engine, unless you're running Ring Engine with 130, which would require you to drop Perfect Charge Boost, because Perfect Charge Bounty is an amazing gadget. Perfect Charge Boost is unfortunately underperforming currently, but I think if you want to run Ring Engine, drop Perfect Charge Boost, run Quick Charge 3 and 130 with Ring Engine and Quick Charge 2 with Perfect Charge Bounty. You could do that, but to keep your build identity intact, Perfect Charge Boost, Perfect Charge Bounty, run that, drop Ring Engine, run Quick Charge 3. This will benefit you significantly more, be more consistent, and allow you to get much more Perfect Charge Bounty and boost procs, while this will give you an insane amount of consistency. All I'm saying is this build will be more consistent into just anything that's based on the Ring Engines, but you're still going to have the issues of being super reliant on being in Slipstream permanently and rolling the items you absolutely need. If you don't roll the items you need and you don't stay in Slipstream for extended periods of time, unfortunately, you will still struggle because your speed generation is very lacking, because Perfect Charge Boost doesn't really provide a lot of speed. Even if you use the tech with Perfect Charge Boost, it still doesn't provide you enough speed compared to like Hyper Ring Engine, Ring Game Boost with consistent rings and things of that nature. Anyways, guys, that's been that for the video. That's all I got for you today. It's just going to be a quicker video of defining builds and things of that nature. Honestly, you guys provided some really good builds. You guys had a lot of really fun builds that I really enjoyed talking about. So again, I want to say this much. If I never make another video on this again because we don't hit the 250 like goal for this video, honestly, thank you so much to everyone that allowed me to talk about their builds, everyone that's allowed me to really explain my reasoning behind why I would change certain builds or why I'm debunking certain builds, things of that nature. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure and an honor to be able to talk about your builds and try to help you guys out. Genuinely, it has probably been some of the most fun ever when it comes to talking about this game, because I really love build theory and build development, but I also like trying to improve players' builds and give people some good advice. Again, if you don't agree with my advice, fully understandable. I respect that decision from you as the player, because no matter what, you as the player should always be the last determining factor on what you play and what you enjoy. But if you want the most consistency and want to have a higher chance of winning more consistently, these are my recommendations to everyone. And again, it's been a pleasure helping you guys out. If this is the last video, thank you so much for watching this series. It has been a fantastic one, but if this video series continues, I cannot wait for the next one, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Maybe it'll be a little bit of, I don't know, useless information. May not be that important, but hey, it's going to be a very funny video nonetheless. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you then.